She laughed so hard. She snorted. That's what woke me up. It was 11:42 p.m. on a Tuesday, second night in a row, and the sound came from the upstairs bathroom. She thought closing the door would muffle it. Didn't. She was on speakerphone again, doing that flirty, hushed laugh she used to save for date nights. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling fan, watching the blades whirl slow. I counted 6 spins before the second snort. Then a low, breathy "you're terrible," and the click of the faucet. She was washing her face, still giggling. I didn't move. I hadn't moved in weeks. Months maybe. Not emotionally. Just physically, out of habit. Because that's what you do when you've been married for 34 years. You endure. You nod. You shut down the parts of you that want to know more than you're allowed. But I noticed things. She stopped watching our shows together. Started going to bed with AirPods in, saying she needed white noise. Her phone was suddenly always on silent and upside down. She began wearing lipstick to run errands. And that blue wrap dress, the one she hadn't touched since our anniversary in 2014, suddenly it was her just something casual for her new book club. She didn't read books. When I offered to go with her to her friend's cabin last month, she laughed. God, Martin, you'd be so bored. It's all wine and gossip. Sure, just wine and gossip. So I sat downstairs in the workshop I built by hand the year our youngest left for college. I flipped through old blueprints for a canoe I never got around to finishing. Listened to the buzz of the fluorescent light, the whir of the tiny desk fan. Pretended I wasn't waiting to hear her come back down and look for me. She never did. Let me say something to the 97% of you listening who haven't subscribed yet. If this feels too real, if you've ever stared at a wall wondering when your marriage turned into surveillance footage, hit the subscribe button. It helps the team keep sharing stories like this. Stories people don't talk about, but live through every damn day. Anyway, I got up at 4:03 a.m. the next morning. No alarm, just muscle memory and resignation. I boiled water the old-fashioned way, poured it over instant coffee, sat at the table in silence. I looked around. Same place, same furniture, same framed photo of us in Montana, the one she stopped commenting on 3 years ago. Then I opened the bottom drawer of my toolbox, pulled out the duffel I had packed over the past 6 weeks. One shirt at a time. One sock here, one razor blade there. Nothing dramatic. I even left the cologne she always hated. In the end, I placed my wedding ring in the shallow glass dish on the hall table, right next to her favorite candle, lavender and cedarwood. She once said it made the house feel like a real home. I didn't light it, just walked past it like it was someone else's memory. Before locking the door behind me, I turned once, just to see it all again. The house we built. The photos, the hand-me-down quilt. The half-dead potted fern she never remembered to water. She wouldn't even realize I was gone until well after sunrise. She'd think I just went to the hardware store, maybe to the diner. She'd text me something casual like, "Get eggs," or, "Can you pick up milk?" And when it didn't go through, she'd frown. Not panic. Not at first. But by then, I'd already be deep into the flatlands. Just a man and his truck. No plan. Just motion. Because there's a moment, and if you've lived long enough, you know this, when the silence stops being passive and starts becoming your only form of rebellion. Martin didn't look back. Not once. Not when he passed the diner where they used to split blueberry pie on Sundays. Not when he crossed the bridge where they scattered her father's ashes. Not when he saw the sign for the lake where they'd camped on their 10th anniversary. It was all noise in the rearview now. Blurred memories wrapped in polite silence and forgotten birthdays. By 12:17 p.m., he was 312 miles south. Engine humming quiet in the lot of a rundown motel that didn't ask for ID as long as you paid in cash. He signed the logbook under a name he hadn't used since sophomore year, Rick Salerno. A dumb inside joke from a bar crawl no one remembered. He liked the anonymity, the invisibility. Room 6 smelled like bleach and fried onions, but it had a working deadbolt and a curtain that didn't quite reach the bottom of the window. Perfect. He placed the duffel on the chair, sat on the edge of the bed, and exhaled for the first time in what felt like years. Not relief, not regret, just space. Mental, emotional, physical, space. Meanwhile, back in the house they shared for 28 years, Denise rolled over and groaned. The bed was cold on one side, but that wasn't new. Martin often woke up early to tinker in the garage or drink coffee in silence. She stretched, yawned, and checked her phone. No notifications. No missed calls. She muttered something about the cats being too quiet and padded toward the kitchen in her robe. There was no smell of coffee. No sound of the kettle. No familiar clink of his spoon against the mug. She opened the fridge. Eggs were still there. The juice carton, untouched. She glanced out the kitchen window. The driveway was empty. A tiny flicker of awareness tickled the back of her neck. Not alarm. Just the awkward sense of something missing. She walked into the hallway and noticed the garage door ajar. Her heels clicked on the tiles as she stepped in and froze. His tools gone. Not all of them, but the ones he used most. The red tool chest was half empty. The top shelf of the storage cabinet, bare. His fishing pole missing from the corner. She blinked hard, like maybe her vision was playing tricks. Back inside, she reached for her phone and called him. Straight to voicemail. Her lips tightened. She tried again. Still voicemail. Now the itch turned into a pulse. A tension in her shoulders. She walked back into the foyer and saw it, his ring, sitting in the glass dish. Next to it, the house keys, neatly stacked, clean, deliberate. There was no note, not even a passive-aggressive sticky. No torn corner of a grocery receipt with "we need to talk." Nothing. Just the objects that once symbolized permanence, now repurposed as punctuation marks. She stood in the silence of the house, suddenly aware of every sound. The hum of the fridge, the creak in the floor, the tick of the kitchen clock. No Martin. No scent of his soap. No throat clearing before he said something boring about weather patterns. Just absence. In full color. She wandered to the living room and opened the drawer where they kept important papers. The insurance folders were missing. So was the file labeled Refi 2021. Her brows pinched. She opened the cabinet beneath the printer. Empty. The safe in the upstairs closet? Unlocked. Barren. She sat down slowly on the edge of the couch and stared at her phone. Still no messages. Her fingers hovered above the screen before she typed something to him. "Where are you?" But she didn't hit send, because she already knew it wouldn't deliver. And for the first time in a very long time, Denise, who always believed she could talk her way out of anything, found herself speechless. The burner phone took a moment to come to life, longer than expected. Martin stared at the loading screen like it was an old enemy he was meeting again after years apart. He'd bought it 6 months ago from a gas station off I-75 and kept it inside the hollowed-out interior of an old stereo speaker in the garage. Denise had once joked that he kept more secrets in his workshop than the Pentagon. She had no idea how close she was. The motel room curtain fluttered with the hum of the ancient AC unit. Outside, a seagull screamed like a cracked smoke alarm. Martin didn't flinch. He connected the burner to his laptop with a short black cable and reached into the inner pocket of his duffel. Out came the USB drive. Small, silver. Unmarked except for one strip of masking tape across it with a single word scribbled in red ink. Denise _logs. He inserted it and opened the folder. There were no journal entries. No angry rants. No melodramatic Dear Diary files. Just data. Screenshots from their shared Google Calendar, where she had marked one weekend in April as Sister's Cabin Retreat. But the photo he took from his truck's dashcam that same Saturday evening showed her in a Safeway parking lot, arms wrapped around a man whose face was partially obscured by her over-the-shoulder grip. She wasn't hugging him like a friend. She was melting into him like gravity didn't apply when she was with him. There was a voicemail, too, not meant for Martin. She had left it on his secondary number, thinking it was Greg's. She'd been mid-rant about how Martin would probably just thank me if I told him I was leaving. Her laugh at the end of the message lasted 7 full seconds. He'd counted. The folder was full of patterns. Receipts for wine bars they'd never gone to, Uber drop-offs that began and ended across town while she claimed to be at therapy, a small charge at a boutique hotel billed under her maiden name. Denise wasn't even being careful anymore. That's what stunned him most. Not that she lied, but that she had stopped fearing the consequences. He opened his encrypted email client, another thing she never asked about because Martin, in her eyes, was always a little too dull to need privacy, and typed 4 words, proceed. Use version 3. He hit send. Version 3 of the exit plan was the most aggressive. It assumed infidelity, asset concealment, and reputational risk. His lawyer, Alan Roth, had helped him build it over 2 years, quietly, strategically, in phases. It wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about positioning. It was about control. Denise had gambled that Martin wouldn't notice. She'd never asked what he did after work. Never thought to check the books he read or the podcasts he listened to. Never noticed how his questions had subtly shifted from passive to precise. She assumed she'd always be one step ahead. That's what made it so easy. He closed the laptop, unplugged the burner, and placed it in the drawer beside the bed. Then he picked up a yellow legal pad and began listing names. Not friends, not family, vendors, locksmith, title officer, notary, storage unit manager, private banker, CPA. Each one already briefed. Each one already paid. Martin had always been dependable, predictable, the kind of man who did the dishes before anyone asked, the kind of man who didn't raise his voice, the kind of man who'd drive 4 hours for the right part instead of ordering online. But there's something people forget about quiet men. When they stop talking, it's not because they've given up. It's because they've started acting. Denise had always believed that if anything ever went wrong, she'd know exactly how to handle it. She was composed, practiced, socially bulletproof. That was her thing. She knew how to spin a story, tilt the truth just enough to come out ahead, leave people with the impression that she was the one holding the leash, even when she was the one breaking it. So when Martin didn't come home by noon, she still played it cool. She texted a casual "you okay?" with a winking emoji. Nothing. She sent a second one, a little sterner. "Call me when you get this." Then, by 2 p.m., she was on the phone with Martin's sister, Ruth, pretending it was a friendly check-in. "Have you talked to your brother today?" Long pause. Then, "Nope, why?" "Oh, nothing," Denise said with a soft laugh. "He's just off-grid, probably one of his nature moods again. You know how he gets." "Sure," Ruth replied, flat, guarded. Next up was Tom, the fishing buddy Martin hadn't spoken to in months, or so she thought. He picked up on the third ring. "Tom, hey, you haven't seen Martin today, have you?" Silence. Then, "Can't say I have, Denise." It was the Denise that made her pause. It sounded like a verdict. Her voice sharpened slightly. "He left this morning without a word. I'm just checking in. Hope everything's okay," Tom said. And then click. He hung up. She stared at her phone. Something wasn't right. At 3:35 p.m., she called the church deacon, Greg Matthews, who used to counsel them during that rough patch a decade ago. She dialed, expecting sympathy, maybe a breadcrumb. "Greg, it's Denise. Have you heard from Martin?" Pause. Then, "He asked me not to get involved." Her breath hitched. "What does that mean?" "I think it means you already know." That one stung. She hung up before she could say something damning. By 4 p.m., Denise was sitting at the kitchen counter, tapping through the Joint Bank app like a woodpecker on Adderall. She refreshed once, twice, then a third time just to be sure. The savings account, the one they called the Lake Fund, read $0. The checking account, frozen. Transfer blocked. Access, restricted. The brokerage account, no longer listed under her login. She opened her wallet and pulled out the shared Amex. On impulse, she tried to order herself sushi and a bottle of overpriced Cabernet from her favorite delivery app. She even added extra wasabi to feel like she was still in control of something. Declined. She tried again. Same result. The ping of failure echoed louder than the silence in the house. She didn't cry right away. Instead, she turned on the TV, let some home renovation show fill the space with fake conflict and paint samples. She reheated leftover pasta she didn't really want. She let her robe stay half open, hair wild, phone on the charger, just in case he called. He didn't. At 9:13 p.m., she texted again. "Martin, seriously, what the hell is going on?" No reply. At 11:04 p.m., she stood in the walk-in closet, staring at the empty space where his coats used to hang. She hadn't noticed earlier. The flannel one she called that dumb lumberjack jacket was gone. So were his boots. Even the ugly wide-brimmed hat he wore to mow the lawn. His absence wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was measurable, physical. That night, she got into bed and left the TV on for company. She stared at the ceiling fan, same one he used to fix every spring, and pulled the blanket over her shoulders. But the bed felt enormous. Not like a luxury, like a warning. It was the first time in 20 years she'd fallen asleep without him in the house. And for the first time since she had started lying to him, she finally cried. Not because she missed him, but because, for the first time, he was the one who vanished first. The banker was maybe 35 tops. Young, slick suit, hair like polished mahogany, voice like a sleep app. His office was buried in the corner of a discreet private wealth firm that didn't advertise and didn't exist on Google Maps unless you knew exactly what to type. Martin arrived 15 minutes early, wearing a faded green jacket and jeans that didn't scream money. But that was the point. People like Martin never needed to show power. They just carried it quietly, like a well-oiled wrench. "Mr. Redmond," the banker said, rising from his desk, extending a firm, practiced hand. "Or would you prefer Rick?" Martin smirked. "Martin's fine. I think Rick did enough damage in college." They sat. No small talk. No financial lecture. Just paper, pens, and precision. The banker opened a thick folder, revealing a trust document already populated with Martin's legal information. The header read, "Redmond Revocable Living Trust, Confidential Allocation." Martin flipped to the allocation schedule. Everything was there, quietly transferred over time. Rental income accounts, the brokerage account in the Caymans, the storage unit deed outside Atlanta, and the backup contingency fund, a gold reserve backed by a mining ETF she never once asked about. Because why would she? Martin had always let her control the fun money. She got the cards. He got the shovel. "You'll note," the banker said, tapping the final page, "that the marital exclusion clause activates upon confirmed breach of fidelity or abandonment. Based on the evidence your counsel provided, you qualify for full asset sheltering as of last Friday." Martin nodded once. She made it easy. The banker offered the faintest smile. "You're not the first man to prepare quietly, and you won't be the last." Martin picked up the pen. "Let's make it official." Meanwhile, 308 miles away, Denise heard the doorbell ring and assumed it was a package. Maybe her facial serum, or the shoes she forgot she ordered. Instead, it was a courier in a gray vest, holding a flat black envelope. "Sign here," she did absently, annoyed. She opened it at the kitchen table, expecting another passive-aggressive note from her mother about Thanksgiving. What she found instead was a stapled legal document. Thick, detailed, titled, "Amendment to Prenuptial Agreement, Redmond Estate, 2003. Her eyes narrowed. What the hell? It had her signature, her initials on every page. She didn't remember signing it, but the notary seal didn't lie. And then she saw the clause. In the event of proven extramarital involvement, the signer agrees to waive claim to joint assets including, but not limited to, real property, liquid funds, retirement holdings, and pending investments. She read it again and again. Beneath the document was a flash drive in a small plastic sleeve. She plugged it into her laptop and double-clicked the only file. A video. Grainy, but clear enough. She was in a parking lot, wrapped around Greg like she was made of syrup. They kissed. She giggled. Her voice on camera. "He thinks I'm with my sister. Can you believe that?" The timestamp? April 15th. The same weekend she told Martin she was emotionally drained and needed a spiritual reset in the woods. At the very bottom of the envelope was a handwritten note. No greeting, no sign-off. "You're free now. So am I." She sat there, blinking, the words slowly sinking into her bones like cold rain through cotton. She reached for her phone and tried Martin again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. This time she left one. "I got your little message. This isn't funny, Martin. If you're trying to scare me into talking, congratulations. You did. Call me." She hung up, then checked the bank app again. Still frozen. She tried her lawyer. Voicemail. She tried Greg. Disconnected. Her world wasn't cracking. It was being unscrewed, bolt by bolt, by the one man she never thought would lift a wrench. And now that he had, there wasn't a single screw left to tighten. It started with the key not turning. She jammed it in harder, wiggled it, tried the spare from her glove box. Nothing. Denise stood on the porch in her work flats, holding a coffee she didn't even remember buying, sweat forming at her temples. The same key that had opened this door for 20 years suddenly felt like a prop. The deadbolt sat cold and quiet, unmoved by her rattling. She rang the bell, waited, rang again, then pounded with the side of her fist. Nothing. She pulled out her phone, opened the smart home app, only to find her access revoked. Her name was gone. No devices listed. No thermostat, no front camera, no security notifications. She blinked at the screen like it had personally betrayed her. Still holding the coffee, she marched around the back, slipped through the side gate, and tested the sliding door. Also locked. She stared through the glass into her own kitchen, eyes narrowing. Everything looked normal. The plants, the rug, the framed picture of their anniversary trip to Vermont. But her stomach sank when she saw the dining table. Her laptop gone. The family iPad gone. Even the ugly ceramic bowl Martin kept his spare change in was missing. Denise backed away like the house itself had slapped her. 10 minutes later, a locksmith then pulled up. She flagged him down. "I live here," she said quickly, voice a little too high. "The locks were changed without my consent. I need you to open it." The guy, maybe mid-50s, trucker hat, looked her over and frowned. "Name? Denise Redmond." He checked his tablet. "You're not on the service request. I own this house." He tilted the screen toward her. "Says here it was refinanced in 2021. Sole ownership transferred to Martin Redmond." She blinked. "What? That's impossible. It was a joint mortgage." "Not anymore. I got paperwork signed, notarized." "See?" He tapped the screen again. "This was 2 years ago." Denise's hand shook as she took a step back. "You're saying he bought me out? On paper?" "Yeah." "Seems like you signed the transfer during a refinance. Probably didn't read the fine print." She was quiet, then laughed. Just once. Loud and cracked. "This is illegal," she said, but it came out more like a whimper. "No, ma'am. This is airtight. All clean. And my job's done here." She stood there in her driveway, holding a lukewarm latte and a useless key, watching the locksmith get back in his van like nothing had happened, as if the ground hadn't just shifted under her shoes. The phone rang. Her mother. She let it ring once, twice, then picked up. Tried to sound casual. "Hi. What's going on?" her mom asked, instantly suspicious. "You sound awful." "I called Martin, and his number's out of service." Denise looked up at the house, the place where she raised 2 kids, hosted holidays, planted tulips, learned to cook lamb shanks just the way he liked them. And now she couldn't even open the front door. "He's gone crazy," she snapped. "Changed the locks, cleared the accounts, moved out like a damn criminal." There was a pause on the other end. "You sure you didn't push him there?" Denise's lips curled. "Excuse me?" Her mother's voice softened, but not kindly. "You've been distant for months. You always talk over him. You didn't even invite him to your birthday dinner. Because he would have made it awkward." Denise hissed. "Aha!" Denise hung up and stood there, phone in one hand, coffee in the other. No door to walk through, no idea where to go. Just the thick, rising hum of panic in her chest. She told herself for years that Martin would never leave, that he didn't have it in him. But as the wind picked up and her old house stood silent behind its new locks, she knew. Martin didn't snap. He calculated. And now the man she once called boring had become something else entirely. Unreachable, unpredictable, and utterly finished. Denise didn't even bother to knock. She barged in with the entitlement of a woman who believed she still had leverage. She'd made the drive across town without music, just the sound of her own shallow breathing and the occasional furious slap of her hand against the steering wheel. She still hadn't showered. Her hair was pulled back in a messy twist that she tried to salvage with lip gloss and tinted sunglasses, as if that would hide the unraveling. Greg's apartment door was cracked open. That was her first warning. The second was the echo of suitcase wheels dragging across hardwood. He was packing. She stepped inside. "Greg." He didn't answer right away, just zipped a large navy duffel and dropped it by the door. She blinked. "What the hell is going on?" Greg turned slowly, jaw clenched, eyes dark with something she hadn't seen in him before. Disgust. He was in jeans and a plain t-shirt, no cologne, no charming smile, no pretense. "My wife knows," he said. Denise scoffed. "Knows what?" Greg laughed once, short, sharp, bitter. "Don't play dumb, Denise. She got screenshots, videos, emails." She stepped back like she'd been shoved. "That's not possible. She's been suspicious for months. You were sloppy." "I wasn't sloppy," she snapped. "You were careless with your passwords." "Oh, so now it's my fault?" Greg barked. "You told me he was clueless, that he still believed you were at your sister's every month. He was clueless, until you panicked and—" "I didn't panic," he said through gritted teeth. "I lawyered up." He walked over to the coffee table, picked up a small tote bag she used to leave there, tossed it at her feet like it was garbage. "My lawyer says I need distance. Legally. Immediately." Denise stared at the bag. Her toothbrush poked out of the zipper like a white flag. "You're overreacting." Overreacting, he stepped forward. My wife has frozen our joint accounts, changed the locks, and sent a copy of your little parking lot performance to our church committee. My kids won't even talk to me. Denise's voice cracked. We said we'd figure it out, that we were in this together. I was in it for fun, for escape. He leaned in close, voice low and venomous. You were the escape, Denise, not the destination. He didn't slam the door. He didn't need to. He closed it slowly, deliberately, a dismissal more final than any argument. She stood outside his apartment complex, in heels that now felt like anchors, holding a cheap tote full of lies, staring at the peeling numbers on his door. No lover, no husband, no home. Her car was parked 2 blocks away because she didn't want neighbors to recognize it. Now the walk felt longer than ever. She passed a couple walking their dog. They didn't look twice at her. She might as well have been invisible. Just another tired woman with puffy eyes and a tote bag full of bad choices. When she finally reached her car, she sat behind the wheel, hands on 10 and 2, but didn't start the engine. The silence inside the vehicle was too much, too dense, like it knew everything. Like it was waiting for her to admit it, that she had no one left to call. No plan, no alibi, no narrative she could bend in her favor. The story she thought she was writing, the one where Martin was predictable and Greg was the future, it was gone. She'd burned both bridges. And now all she could do was sit in the smoke. The email subject line was painfully neutral. Finalized asset allocation summary, Redmond separation. Denise clicked it with the kind of dread she usually reserved for biopsy results or IRS letters. Her phone was on 14% battery. She hadn't eaten all day, and she was curled up on her sister's guest couch beneath a throw blanket that smelled like dog. Her whole life had been distilled into that one ping. She tapped the PDF attachment. It opened fast, 1 page. Just one. She skimmed for numbers. Her eyes locked on a single, miserable line. Total assets awarded to Mrs. Denise Redmond. 2012 Honda CR-V, EST value, $4,800. Retirement account ending in 1132, $11,742.88 as of last balance. That was it. No house, no primary checking, no stocks, no bonds. Not even the stupid art print she bought on Etsy and always claimed was worth something. She blinked hard, thinking maybe the document hadn't loaded fully. She pinched the screen, zoomed in. Same result. 1 line, 2 crumbs. Her fingers flew across the screen, stabbing the phone icon, calling the number at the bottom of the email. Roth and Associates, Private Asset Division. It rang once. Then a calm, male voice answered. Martin Roth speaking. You're his accountant? She hissed. I am. I just read this email. What is this? Some kind of sick joke? This can't be legal. He's trying to leave me nothing. There was a pause. Not awkward. Just long enough to make her feel small. It's not a joke, Mrs. Redmond. Every item listed is accurate and fully compliant with your signed agreements. What agreements? I didn't agree to this. You did, he said gently, like she was a student who hadn't studied for a test. In 2003, you signed an amended prenup that included a proportional asset waiver in cases of proven infidelity. She snorted. Oh, give me a break. That was years ago. It can't still. It was never rescinded, ma'am. In fact, you initialed updates in 2007 and again in 2016. I did no such thing. He cut her off politely. We have video records of both signings. You were present, alert, and smiling. Your signature matches. Your ID was scanned. She fell silent, suddenly unsure if she remembered either moment. Martin had always handled the boring stuff. He'd hand her a folder, point to the signature tab, and she'd scribble her name like she was signing a birthday card. Why would I ever sign that? She whispered. You said at the time, the accountant replied, reading, that Martin would never use it. He's too decent. Her stomach twisted. I want to fight this, she snapped. Tell Martin I'm hiring an attorney. You're welcome to, Roth replied. Just keep in mind, this document's already been validated by an independent arbitrator, and the full asset division has been recorded with the county. You're free to appeal, of course, but your chances of reversal are minimal. Denise clenched her jaw. You sound awfully smug for a paper pusher. He paused, then said, not unkindly, I'm not smug, Mrs. Redmond. I've just seen this play out before. You're angry now. You'll stay angry for a while. But the paperwork doesn't care. It only remembers what you signed. She opened her mouth, grasping for something to say. Some threat, some moral high ground. But before she could speak, he added one last sentence. Mrs. Redmond, the truth is you weren't robbed. You were inattentive. And he simply planned better. Click. The line went dead. Denise stared at her reflection in the black phone screen. Wild hair, eyes ringed with sleepless purple, lips trembling with words that would never land. She flung the blanket off, stood up too fast, and dropped her phone. Clattered to the floor. $12,000. And a rusted Honda. That was the grand total of her future now. Martin hadn't screamed, hadn't thrown things, hadn't even raised his voice. He'd just done the math, and walked away with every decimal in place. The dinner invite came through a group text she'd forgotten she was still in. From their eldest, Caroline. We'd really like to have dinner. All of us. One evening. Just talk. Denise stared at it for a full minute before replying. Sure. What day? The message was polite, gentle, but heavy with subtext. It wasn't just a family meal. It was a gathering of the jury. The restaurant was one of those faux rustic places with reclaimed wood walls and artisanal ice cubes. Caroline had picked it neutral territory. Quiet. Respectable. The kind of place that made you feel like the lighting forgave your past mistakes. Martin arrived 10 minutes early. He wore a clean button-down and dark jeans. No jacket. No drama. He spoke with the hostess like he'd been there before and ordered a ginger ale. Then he waited. Calm. Centered. He didn't check his phone. Didn't fidget. Just sat there like a man who already knew the outcome. Denise arrived 15 minutes late. Hair freshly blown out but frizzing at the edges from stress. She wore her nicest blouse, the one she once bragged about getting half off at Nordstrom, and a smile she hadn't practiced in days. Caroline and Evan were already seated, their expressions neutral but tight. Traffic, Denise muttered, sliding into the booth. No one challenged her, but no one filled the silence either. Menus were passed, drinks ordered, small talk attempted, but eventually it landed where they all knew it would. Caroline folded her hands on the table. Mom, can we ask you something? Denise looked up, already bracing. Of course. Evan cleared his throat. We found some things. Messages. Screenshots. Denise's spine stiffened. From where? Does it matter? Caroline asked softly. Is it true you called Dad boring? That he was too soft? That he never understood finances? That he was dead weight? Denise let out a hollow laugh. Are you serious? You think I meant any of that? It's venting. Everyone vents. I was frustrated. Evan interrupted. You told Aunt Judy he was an expired product you forgot to return. Her smile cracked. Oh, come on. That's not fair. You're taking things out of context. Caroline looked at her father. Dad, do you have anything to say? Martin reached into his coat pocket and calmly placed a small recorder on the table. One button. No theatrics. He pressed play. Denise's voice, unmistakable, filled the quiet booth. Martin's not even a man anymore. He's just this thing that floats around the house. Doesn't argue. Doesn't lead. Just waits for instructions. If I wanted a golden retriever with a pension, I'd have adopted one. No one breathed. Her own words. Clear. Crisp. Delivered without venom, but with surgical cruelty. Denise's jaw fell open. How did you get that? Martin didn't look at her. He looked at his daughter. You asked if it was true. Evan leaned back, folding his arms. We needed to hear it. Not from second-hand screenshots. From her. Denise stared at them. This is ridiculous. You're all acting like I'm the criminal. What about all the years I supported this family? The birthday parties? The school events? The damn bake sales? Mom, Caroline said almost kindly. He was there for all of that too. Denise opened her mouth again, then closed it. Because what could she say? That she didn't mean it? That it was just words? That somehow he deserved it? Martin finished his drink. I didn't come here for revenge. I came because they wanted to know the truth. Now they do. He stood up, pulled a few bills from his wallet, and placed them under his glass. No theatrics, just precision. He nodded once to his kids. I'll leave you three to talk. Then he walked out, unhurried, at peace. Leaving Denise sitting in the booth, surrounded by flickering candles and reclaimed wood, trying to gather the shards of a mask that no longer fit her face. No rebuttal. No edits. Just the raw, uncut version of herself playing on loop. The hum of the engine was the only sound Martin needed now. He'd swapped the tires 2 days earlier, just a precaution, but it felt symbolic too. Fresh tread. Better grip. No risk of blowouts. He checked the mirrors, adjusted the seat just slightly, and pulled onto Route 89 with the ease of a man who no longer owed anyone an explanation. The morning light stretched long and gold over the hills, dappling the windshield with warmth. A thermos of coffee sat snug between the seats, steam curling up like a quiet prayer. In the glove box, the finalized trust papers, a clean title to the land he'd bought under a holding name, and a list of supplies for the small cabin he planned to build. His hands, his pace, his rules. He passed an exit sign for the town where he and Denise first met. Didn't even blink. His phone buzzed once. Just once. He didn't check it immediately. Let it sit there face up in the cup holder while he drove past fields and shuttered barns. His playlist cycling through old rock and new silence. No angry ballads. No breakup anthems. Just the sound of movement. Eventually, he tapped the screen. One new message. From Denise. I didn't mean any of it. Please come home. No follow-up. No emojis. No punctuation tantrum. Just that soft desperation. Like she finally understood the ending wasn't written for her. He didn't even open it. Just swiped left. Delete. No folder. No archive. Gone. The GPS resumed speaking. In 4 miles, stay left to continue north. He smiled at that. North. A direction with no history. Just wind, pine, and time. Back at what used to be her house, now technically a holding asset of the trust. The porch light flicked on automatically at 6 p.m., like it had for years. But no one stood beneath it. No car in the driveway. Just silence. Lights on timers. A hollow shell with perfect landscaping. Inside, Denise stood by the window, phone clutched in hand. No reply. Not even a read receipt. The smart thermostat had dropped to 64. She hadn't figured out how to override the new system yet. The fireplace app wouldn't connect. She wrapped herself in a throw blanket and stared out into the dark, half expecting his truck to pull in, headlights slicing through the hedge. Nothing. Not now. Not ever. Because Martin wasn't built for dramatic exits. He was built for consistency, for detail, for making sure the last nail was flush and the paint dried clean. He gave her years, meals, patience, even chances. Now he gave her silence, and took with him the one thing she thought he'd never reclaim. His dignity. The truck rumbled forward, humming along a 2-lane road that curved into pine country. Martin reached out and rested one hand on the wheel, the other on the windowsill. Wind in his face, thermos still warm. No tears, no speeches, just a man and his forward motion. Because sometimes the sharpest revenge isn't rage or noise or exposure, it's absence. And the sound of tires rolling toward a place where no one will ever again ask him to dim.